It's the eve of the Trump-Kim summit's one-year anniversary. North Korea is urging the United States to withdraw what it called its hostile policy towards the North.
The statement was announced by state media KCNA. It said, and I'm quoting here, "The arrogant and unilateral U.S. policy will never work on North Korea." KCNA said that the joint statement signed by U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on June the 12th here in Singapore is in danger of becoming a blank sheet of paper because the U.S. is turning a blind eye to its implementation.
With the mood buoyant following that historic meeting in Singapore, the U.S. and North Korean leaders, well, we know that they met again just 8 months later, and this was in Hanoi. The outcome this time, though, very different. The summit was cut short and no agreement was reached, well, especially on the issue of sanctions.
That's right. So how have these economic measures affected North Korea, and is there any way out for Pyongyang? UN sanctions began over a decade ago.
The measures began with a ban on the international trade of weapons, technology and luxury goods to North Korea. They then grew to include full sectoral bans on North Korean exports, including textiles, seafood, coal and iron ore.
That's right. Now, the U.S. has also imposed its own sanctions on Pyongyang. In his first year in office, U.S. President Donald Trump banned all financial business with North Korea. Other countries have also gone down this unilateral route. South Korea, Australia, they've both had their own versions of sanctions on Pyongyang.
So it's hard to accurately determine how these sanctions have impacted North Korea. Official economic data, as you would imagine, tough to come by. But in 2017, the UN estimated that the ban on North Korean exports would slash export revenues by $1 billion. That's more than a third of Pyongyang's export income.
A large amount indeed. Well, coal, North Korea's largest export, would account for annual losses of more than $400 million alone. And the ban on iron would cost the country $250 million.
Seafood, $300 million. Lead, $100 million. So South Korea's central bank estimated last year that the North Korean economy recorded its biggest decline in 20 years, dropping 3.5% last year, while exports fell by more than 37%.
China is North Korea's biggest trading partner. 95% of North Korea's trade is in fact done with China, but sanctions have taken their toll. According to China's customs authorities, exports to China plunged 88% last year, while Chinese imports fell by 33%.
Russia, another key ally, saw trade with North Korea plummet, down 56% in 2018. But it's not just trade that's been hit. The 2017 UN resolution also banned the employment of North Korean workers.
And the U.S. estimates that Pyongyang generates more than $500 million a year from its almost 100,000 overseas laborers, including 30,000 who are in Russia.
So according to unpublished reports by Moscow to the United Nations Security Council, nearly 2/3 of the North Korean workers in Russia went home last year.
Pyongyang has limited options, though, in overcoming these economic hurdles. But analysts point to China and Russia still as potential saviors. Beijing has repeatedly called for sanctions on North Korea to be relieved. But with Pyongyang already so reliant on China, analysts are saying that it's wary of handing Beijing too much influence in its affairs.
Russia, an ally from the Soviet era, joined China's calls for a more relaxed sanctions policy. Kim Jong-un met with Russian President Vladimir Putin for their first ever meeting shortly after the Hanoi summit.
Now, Mr. Kim left those talks empty-handed, with analysts saying that Russia could not afford to lose its authority at the UN Security Council, where it is, of course, a veto-holding member.